All right, welcome back. This is lesson 10-8, the end of the circle chapter. It's called Equations of Circles. Circles have equations just like lines have equations. Lines have equations that we can write as y equals mx plus b, unless it's a vertical line, in which case it's just x equals a constant. But we're familiar with y equals mx plus b. Some of you are familiar with quadratic equations and that their graph is a parabola, some U-shaped graph or an upside down U. Circles have equations too. So here's a circle. I want to write an equation for every point on the circle, every x comma y. So just like the equation for a line is y equals 3x plus 7. The x and the y in there represent every point on that line. I want to write an equation that represents every point on this circle if the center is hk and the radius is r. And to do it, we have to write an equation that connects all these values somehow. And if you give yourself a chance to pause and think about what do I know, what fact do I know that must be true about this, this, and this, I'm hoping you're thinking of the distance formula. The distance from here to here is the radius of the circle. So what does the distance formula look like? X2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Sorry, I'm a little ahead of myself here. The square root of all that equals the radius. That's the distance formula. The radius of the circle is the square root of this x minus that x squared plus this y minus that y value squared. So this is an equation for that circle. The reason I almost forgot my radical is it's not usually written this way. Nobody likes this big ugly radical here. Usually it's written without that, and the way we would get rid of that is we would put a square on both sides, because that square and that radical are inverse operations that'll undo each other. So the left side becomes x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. This is how it's normally written. This is called the standard form for the equation of a circle. So instead of y equals mx plus b, which is a form for the equation of a line, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared is the equation for a circle. It's called the standard form. H and k would be numbers that are in the equation that you could see in the equation. And the radius would also be a known number in the equation most of the time. And we're going to do a whole bunch of examples in a moment. So just like if I say here's a line, y equals 1/2 x plus 5, just by looking at this we can see the slope is half, we can see the y-intercept is 5. So when an equation for a circle is written in this form, just by looking at it we're supposed to be able to identify where the center is and identify what the radius is. So we're going to practice all this right now. So here are, I guess, 6 problems we're going to go through real quickly. Write the equation of each circle in standard form. So what's the equation for a circle if the diameter is 6 and the center point is here and 4, negative 10? So we start with x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, and we're just substituting our values. Remember, the center point is h comma k. So x minus h in this case is x minus 4 squared plus y minus k would be y minus, what's my k value? Negative 10. Well, y minus negative 10 means y plus 10 squared. And it has to equal my radius squared. Well, if the diameter is 6, the radius is 3. 3 squared is 9. This is the equation for that circle. you were to plot a circle with this center point and make a radius of 3 or a diameter of 6, this would be the equation of that circle. And all the points on that circle, all those ordered pairs, the x's and y's, would fit into this equation. Another one, radius 9, center -1, 6. So looking up here, all I need to do is fill in this h value here, this k value here, and my radius is 9. So my answer is going to be x minus h minus -1 means +1 squared, plus y minus k, k is 6 squared, equals my radius squared. If the radius is 9, then the radius squared is 81. That's the answer. That's the equation for that circle. Now, on the upcoming problems down below, we're going to be flipping this around, where I'm going to be giving you the equation and asking you where is the center and what is the radius. So let's look at it, the two we just did backwards. If I give this to you and say where is the center, it's tempting to say the center is at +1, -6, but that's not correct. Remember, the center was -1, +6. It's actually the opposite of what it looks like here. And the reason it's the opposite is because there's a minus sign built into the standard form. The number after, let's look at y minus k, the number after that minus sign is the k value. What comes after this minus sign is a 6. That was the k value. So it's the opposite of what it looks like. -1, 6 is the center point. And this is not the radius, remember. This is the radius squared. So how would we get the radius? It would be the square root of that number, which is 9. So let's practice down here. If I give you this equation and ask you where is the center, what is the radius, it is in standard form. Looks like the center is -8, +13, but we need to be careful. It's what comes after this minus sign. So 8 is the h value. What comes after this minus sign? Well, y plus 13 is the same as y minus a -13. -13 is the k value. And this is the radius after it has been squared. So the square root of that number is the radius. So that would be the answer to that one. Down here, x plus 3 squared plus y squared equals 5. So it's in standard form. So the center is going to be -3 comma, there's nothing being subtracted from y, so -3 0. This is not the radius. This is the radius after it has been squared. So the radius is the square root of 5. Here, x squared plus y squared minus 100 is 0. That's not in standard form. We need to put it in standard form. And to be in standard form, we're going to add 100 to both sides. So now I can see, well, there's nothing subtracted from the x, nothing subtracted from the y, so I guess the center is the origin in this case. This is the radius squared, so the radius is the square root of that, which is 10. All right, here's the big one. Check this out. Where is the center? What is the radius? I want you to pause, do this one yourself, and then we'll show you something incredible. Center is -4, 7. Radius is 8. I'm guessing just about everybody got that right. Now, why is this a big deal? This is the equation from your last assignment. Remember this. This equation is the one I just asked you to try. And hopefully just by looking at it, you were able to say, the center is -4, 7, and the radius is 8. Well, if the center is -4, 7, and the radius is 8, then all I really have to do to plot this, to graph this, is -4, 7, put my center point there, and then go 8 spaces to the left, to the right, and 8 spaces to the left, and 8 spaces up and down, or just grab my compass and open it up 8 spaces and make a circle. And you will get that circle that you graphed the other day by making that table. Why did I make you do the table? To waste your time and torture you? Yes. Why else did I have you do that table? Because I wanted you to see that the equation is telling you all of the x's and y's that actually truly do land on that circle. So when you look at this and say -4, 7, radius 8, great, you can quickly graph that circle. But remember, all the points that land on the circle, like 3, 10.9, are the x's and y's that fit that equation. If we haven't discussed it yet in one of the group chats, you ran into a problem when you tried x equals 6 on this one. When you plugged in x is 6, you got in your work the square root of a negative number, which is imaginary, a non-real number, and that caused a problem. And the reason that you got a non-real answer when x was 6 is, look at this equation. When x is 6, which is here, I'll put my red pen on x is 6. Where is the circle? What y value would we expect when x is 6? And the answer is there really isn't a y value on the circle when x is 6. That's why you got an answer that was not real. So that long table that you did the other day, we only did that one time. Moving forward, if you want to graph a circle, you identify the center, identify the radius, and just plot the center, open up your compass, the appropriate radius, and make your circle. That's it for today.